Cool. Hello. Um, so I will do a quick introduction. I'm Yatish. I'm on the NST with several other people actually, and it's led by Katie, who is our MCVP Finance, who's actually in the call right now and is dancing. So, yay. Yeah. So I'm on the NST, and this is one of the transition calls that we're doing just to give you guys information, help with the transition process, and really equip you with not only the tools. Actually, ironically, today's session is about tools and resources, but like the tools and also the mindset and ability to help transition your successor, or if you're a successor, then understanding what your predecessor is sort of teaching you and the materials that you'll need to move forward in order to start your term or get ready for your term and things like that. And so as the session, like I said, is tools and resources, we'll start with basically the new budget tool that I'll just show you guys the budget tool, and then at the end we'll go over how it works, what it looks like, and then you'll get it shared later on today via email, hopefully. But yes, let us do a screen share now. Cool. So yes, you guys can see the tool. Yes, I think so. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, and you can yeah. Cool. So this is what the new budget tool looks like, and it has a lot of fun things that you'll enter in to make it your own. So it'll be ISIG and then your LC name. This one I just made a copy of the current tool, like so that I can edit it for Austin, for example. And so it's basically your budget is a detailed plan that you'll use to express sort of the quantitative measures of your LC, tracking yourself, doing budgeted versus actuals. And so we'll go into this in detail. I'll go through it step by step after we go through some of the other tools and resources that we have. But basically the gist of your budget is outlined in this first page where it says basics, and then you've got your dashboard, you got all of your reporting tools so that when you're making quarterly reports, you can go through those and have no problem understanding and being able to like present something to your board of advisors, to your LC, things like that. And so the first thing that we'll actually go over is wave accounting, which is, in the easiest terms, it's basically your local bookkeeping processes. So it's a way for you to check with Intact, which we'll also go over, and measure what is being recorded at the national level by our accountants for you, and see where your LC is at in terms of revenues and expenses that you've been recording. And so wave accounting is the localized process of that, which will also be utilized when you have like SONA and quarterly reports, when you have to submit those. Your wave accounting statements are an easy way for you to not only track yourself, but also keep your LC accountable, and also to show the national level or the MC that you are tracking yourself and you've got a good understanding of your financial situation at all times. So if you guys haven't been to Wave Accounting before, it is www.waveapps.com. Can you guys see the URLs as well, or just the screen?
You can see the URLs.
Okay, awesome, cool. So we go onto waveapps.com, and then you will sign in. Each LC should have a login information, and if you don't, actually this would be a good time to note that and let Katie or myself know so that we can get you one and make sure that it has all of the sort of the preset tools that allow you to track your LC. So mine already has my login information because I honestly probably don't remember this password. So I will sign in. So this is the sort of when you log in, this is what it'll look like. So as you'll notice in the top left, it says personal. So then I go to Austin. And if you guys didn't know, I'm the LCVP Finance of ISIG in Austin. So this is why I have Austin's login information. So basically, you can see a snapshot of your incomes and expenses if you've been tracking and using this tool. So you go to transactions. And so it'll start off by saying all of your unverified transactions. So luckily, all of my transactions have been verified. And so if I click this, it'll just show all of the transactions that we have. The last thing that we've reported is all the way back in August of the 24th. The reason for that is actually I use our budget tool as an integrated wave accounting system sort of thing so that we can localize all of our expenses and revenues. But Wave is a really good way, if you don't have that in your budget tool, to make sure that you are reporting everything. So these are all expenses that have happened, and then if you go through, you can see some. We sold some plants for a fundraiser once. So we had $92 in revenue from that, and then we have exchange recorded in here as well. But I'll just show you how. So we'll go to unverified. I can show you how to basically use the system. So once you have your login information, you go to your LC. So if you want to add an income, say you got an OGX revenue or something like that, you would move it to today's date. So it automatically starts on today's date, but say you got the revenue back a week ago, so November the 24th, so you can click back. It has a calendar feature. So then November 24th, you do a description. So you'd say, let's say I paid for my exchange and I'm going on an OGT. So OGT, and then you'd say Tish. Yes, Tish her. I took Austin. So be as descriptive as possible, just so that it's an easy way for us to, when you print off these statements or you send them to us, or you send it in general, or you're looking at it, anybody that's in the LC, regardless of whether they're in the finance function or not, can understand it and digest it in a very reasonable way. And so then the amount will say, so for example, I'll say $700, which is the total amount for the OGT. You would also, like when you're putting this in, you should calculate how much your LC has deducted, which is in the compendium in terms of whether you're in expansion, a general member, full member, all those things. So just make sure that you're putting the accurate amount so you have a realistic understanding of how much revenue you're getting, and then when you have expenditures, making sure that you have the exact, like, to the cent amount. And so we say 700, we go to categories. And so what's cool is actually when we give you one of these logins, it should have the coding that corresponds with what Intacct has as well as Podio, for like what the revenue or expense is for. And so category will say, so it'll pull up, so you can see it pulls up immediately incomes. And if you guys at any time can't see me, or if it starts freezing or anything like that, just let me know. So incomes, so application fee, you got your, so it still has some of the old sort of verbiage for OGT, but you can say, so and the splitting is also a little different, so we'll have to update this section now that I think about it. But so we'll say the GIP match fee so that it corresponds with OGT, and then your account. So if you have a local bank account, you can always add that need as an extended account. So MC receivable is when it's going into your MC controlled account. So in this case, that revenue is going into the MCLC account for Isaac and Austin. And so then what you'll do is, in order to make sure that the process is done properly, there's a verification. And so what I always recommend my members do is they hold each other accountable, or they hold me accountable to check on this on a daily or weekly basis. Daily is actually very preferable because then you're on top of everything on a daily basis. And so I have one of them go through, and so it's basically finalized. They go through and they verify it, make sure it's updated on our budget, make sure that the income statement on Intacct reflects this as soon as possible. And then once we hit verify, it will basically, it'll say transaction is verified, and then you undo that if you didn't mean to verify it. And basically, once you verify it, it'll move from the, so then you can click on verified, and then that way you can see all the verified transactions that you have. And so yeah, that's the basic explanation of how you would use Wave in terms of tracking on a local level what is going on revenue-wise and expense-wise, and it also keeps you accountable to look at all the other tools and resources that you have to make sure that you're painting the most accurate picture of what your LC looks like financially. And that's where you can actually go back to the dashboard and you can look at, so like I will fully admit, like since we haven't had anything entered for September, October, November, or even today's the 1st of December, it doesn't paint an accurate picture of our LC based on looking at our Wave accounting statement. And so that's why it's really important to have some sort of software, and Wave is like the one that we give to you as, it's a free software that allows you to do this tracking. you can see where your expenses are, where your income is for each month, and see how that paints a better picture of what your LC looks like. And so I will just pause for a half second and see if you guys have any questions, maybe. Any questions? Am I talking too quickly, too slowly?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So it gets split into two, right? So do you have to make two separate transactions, one for the LC and one for the MC, if we're a general member?
Yeah. So basically the amount that goes to you. So Wave accounting is a way for you to track your own revenue. So like you're not worried about how much the MC. Well, so the only reason you're worried about how much the MC is taking is so that you can accurately put how much you're keeping. But with regard to like the MC versus LC, Wave accounting is solely for your LC's benefit. And so I don't know if you saw the comments, but basically Katie basically told us that you should take into account the royalty fee. So OGT would be $525 if you're a general member. And so that's the split where it's 75% is kept from the LC and then the MC keeps 25%. So when you go in there to accurately put it in, like I said, I put 700 just because it depends on where you're at, but I would put 525 because Austin's also a general member. And so you would do the same. If you're a general member, you'd say 525. And then OGT, you'd still put the same description and everything.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions? We're going to be covering like basically, so that was step number 2 of 6 on my agenda for today's session. We'll still go over Intacct, Podio, sort of how your EB plays into the whole scenario of the tools and resources that you have at your disposal. And then we'll do an in-depth discovery of the budget tool together. So yeah, if you have any questions about Wave at any time, of course, after the session, during the session, we'll have Q&A at the end. But yeah, I'll move on into the next part. Cool. So we are going to talk about Intacct now. So Intacct is actually a clever play on words, but it's an accounting software that we use at the national level to make sure that our transaction sort of making sure that there's consistency in transactions, tracking everything. And so what happens is actually your Podio transactions, which we'll go into Podio as well, but your Podio transactions will be reflected on the income statement that shows up on Intacct. So that's another layer of tracking and making sure that everything is visualized and it's accurate. And so what I just did there was I hit sign in. Have any of you guys, have all of you been able to sign in and do all the stuff necessary for signing in? If not, you can let us know and we can show you that process as well. But yes, for the sake of going through it, I will just log in. So sign in. So this is what the interface looks like. And basically, the two main things that you'll be using Intacct for. So one thing to note is that as LC members, as general members, as VPs, you can't change anything on Intacct at all. So honestly, Intacct is a way for you to look and reflect and like take notes of what is being depicted of your LC and whether that's accurate or not. And then you can send emails to the finance assistant, to Katie, to the NST with any sort of concerns that you have or discrepancies that you see in the accounting process. And so the first thing we'll look at is income statements. So you'll hover over to reports and you can, actually before I go into that, this is the dashboard as soon as you log in, and so it shows you the revenues by LC, so breakdown in a graph, and then expenses by LC, and then you can see the net surplus or deficit by LC, and our balance, all that stuff. And so then conferences as well. So it gives you a good picture of how we're looking as LCs, as a whole, as the national level. We look at conferences, all those things. And so you'll click reports. And so this is to basically look at income statements. And so I'm scrolling down. I'll just use Austin as an example. So it's got your income statement from the prior year. So in this case, it would be Isaac and Austin all the way back in 2015, January 1st to December 31st. We'll look at the current income statement. So I think, let's see, let me know if you guys are still seeing, are you seeing my income statement? Or are you seeing? Okay, you guys can see the income statement now? Yes, no, maybe so. I think so. Yes, okay, awesome, thank you. Cool, so what is amazing about Intacct is it is very detailed, and it's also basically the amount of information you give through Podio, through any mediums, will be reflected on this as accurately as possible. So for example, in January of 2016, we had match fees totaling $13.69. So if you click on that, it actually gives you a breakdown of what that match fee is, what company it was, what EP it was, all of those things. And then it has other revenues basically, so LC supplies, printing, whatever it may be. And so, I'm sorry, those are expenditures, not not revenues. And so it gives you a breakdown that you can click on. So we can say team retreats, and then it will pull all of these things from Podio to say, okay, these are the transactions that happened, and a better understanding of making sure that what you requested on Podio, what you can input, like what revenues have been coming through in terms of invoices, are accurately reflected on your income statement. And you should be doing that on a bi-weekly basis at the very least, because it updates quite frequently. And so making sure that there aren't any discrepancies, and if there are, you tackle those early so that your LC has the proper amount in your bank account at all times and is, you know, being given its fair share and all that stuff. And so you can scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see the local chapter balance. And so this is a nice way of basically our accountants giving to you an income statement that they're presenting, and it's constantly being updated electronically. And so while the income statement is really useful, you should still be tracking these things on your own local budget. And that's why it's like super important that I mentioned the budget tool at the beginning, and then we'll go through it at the end. The budgeting tool basically intertwines all of these things together. So yes, okay, now we will go back to sharing the, you get to see my face several times today. Okay. Did anybody have any questions about the income statement or how to like find your own? And if you are an expansion, your LC may not be on here. And so that is where you can get your specific information by asking, well, actually, what would be the best way, Katie, for them to get their information?
Yeah, so so for expansions, there's not like individual accounts because that was done in the past, and with like a lot of opening and closing, it became really confusing, like for accountants. And so the best way to do that, actually, Yatish, if you want to share your screen again, we're in the process of sorting it to make it be simpler to go in and access. But currently, the best way to do that would be to go to the general ledger.
Okay.
It's like the fourth tab.
Yeah.
And to go down to general ledger.
So right here.
On the right-hand side, yeah. Yep. And there's a specific account. So if you go to location, location
right here.
and search 400, you can type in 400. Yeah, there's a 400 expansions account. And so you can put in like dates that you want to search, and you can go in and look at all the transactions recorded for the under expansions. So that's why for every single revenue that's recorded, we're trying to update, because some of them are missing, but every single revenue should say like OGV, this EP, like in parentheses Minnesota, or OGT, this EP's name, St. Edwards, so that it's easy to go in and look at all of the different transactions you have. So right now, a lot of the like consolidated tracking is being done either through Wave or through the budget tool, depending on how how each expansion is currently tracking. Yeah, so we're working on making it easier and more user friendly to look at. So hopefully by WNC there will be like a more simple process for that. But at least for now, go to location expansions under general ledger and you can search for specific date.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad that you joined this call so that I didn't have to confuse myself about that. Awesome. And so what is actually awesome too is we have, so when you're looking at the transition plan that you have, these, so the session we're going over today is tools and resources. And so if you look at how to use, basically, so how to use Intacct and Wave and what the purposes are, this is a PowerPoint that can be opened. So PowerPoint is on how Intacct works and how to navigate it. But I'll show you another part of Intacct really quickly, but this is a really cool PowerPoint to look through in terms of how to navigate the website and how to best use it. And so the last thing that you'll be using is on the accounts receivable. So for any invoices that you have on the incoming exchange side, you can click there and you have invoices. And so then these are just invoices that you can see. So I'll say SalesView is an invoice that Austin has. So it is posted. And so you, if you guys saw there, there's a search bar. So basically your customer name is the company that you're working with. And once the invoice has been created, it'll be put onto Intacct. And so then you can see all of the necessary information. You hit view, it will show you basically the breakdown of when the invoice is created, when it's due, the EP information, things like that. So I just won't click on it because the session is going to go on the internet. But yes. And so if you have any questions about that, of course, let me know now or during the Q&A. But the main two things are using it to check your income statements, your reports, as well as track your invoices, see if they've been posted, whether they're been paid, things like that. And so we will sign out. Awesome. And so then the next thing, I'll pause for 2 minutes again and see if you guys have any questions. I also just like seeing my own face, so. Cool. Any questions? I'll wait 5 seconds. Cool.
Yeah, just a quick note. So Yatish mentioned the PowerPoint for Intacct is super helpful. There's also a few tutorials that I'm going to include in the bottom of that PowerPoint that aren't there yet. So if you ever have questions about like how to view your income statement or how to read it or anything like that, there are tutorials that exist as well.
Cool. Awesome. Yes. Tutorials are always good. Cool. So now we will go to Podio. So as you can see, I came prepared with login for all of these. So Podio is podio.com. If you don't have a Podio account, please let us know like right now or after this session so that we can make sure that you are in the right spaces. So again, not very good with passwords, so I have mine saved, hit login. So basically, you are going to use, so the session today is going to cover how to basically look at OGX, so the EPs that you have, whether they've paid or not. And so that is a process that you and your VP OGX or the OGX team will work with you on to make sure that once a person has applied and is going to go on an exchange, making sure that their payment goes through and like you track that from the beginning all the way to the end. And so as you can see, I'm in ISIC Austin, ISIC US. And so for this one, I'll say more workspaces because we're going to go to OGX, so Outgoing Exchange. And so that's the 03 space. And awesome. So you can see all the applicants if you go to OGX applicants, so you click that. But the main thing is here if you click OGV or OGET. So that's if a person's going on a volunteer opportunity, going on an entrepreneur or a long internship. And so we'll do OGV as an example. So So what you can do here is so you can see what LC it's from, what quarter it is, the EP manager, the EP, and so the main thing that you're going to look for though is you're going to slide over, and so this is something that nobody changes except for the MC. So once it's paid, so you can say, you can look at the status of the EP as well as whether they've paid or not. So some of these are no payments, and then some of these have paid. And so this is a way to say, okay, here are all the EPs that we have for our LC. And then you can also, if you look over here, so Austin has 12, so I can click there, and it filters to where you can only see the EPs relevant to your LC. And so then it tells you when all these things, and so you slide again, and so then you can see who's paid, who hasn't. So making sure that the current status is corresponding with whether they've paid or not, stuff like that. And so then same thing for OGET. You can go through the same process. So what's nice is you don't have to click anything other than just like go to that tab and then slide over. Yep. So you can slide over and you'll see so whether they've paid or not. And so that's the way that you would use the OGX space to track specifically whether or not people have paid for their experience, whether you need to follow up with your OGX team to reach out to them. And so it's a simple usage of that space. But basically the next space is to look at IGT. So like I said before, on Intact, you have invoices that are created and then you need to make sure that they're paid, and so you look at the updating process of that. And so you'll go to another space that you're going to need is you're going to need the IGT National CRM space. So this is the Customer Relationship Management space for IGT. And so basically then you'll hover over to invoices, and so this process is generally your IGT team will request an invoice. You just have to make sure that like the invoice is actually there for the company, and then your job is on the Intact side to make sure that the payment has gone through and it is updated. And so on here, it will tell you whether the payment has been received, and then it just has to be coded and then updated on your Intact. And so that's what this space is for. I won't go into much detail for this, but the main space that you as a finance person will use is the finance space. So the main usage of the finance space or the two main things that you'll need to know, and you'll be set for most things, is the reimbursement space and the direct payment space. The transfer space is also useful, but I can go into that later. So the reimbursement space is if you or an LC member spends money on anything and it has to do with an expense that relates to your LC, you would go into the reimbursement space, and yes. So you go to the reimbursement space and you add a new request. If, say, I need to spend money, I spent money on something like flyers for a marketing event. So the submitter's profile, you should be certified. If you're not certified yet, the certification is on the end of every finance newsletter that has been sent out thus far. And so you can get certified for quarter 3, quarter 4. So the certification, which I'll pull up actually, that's, oh, I didn't. Let me stop presenting while you can see my face while I pull this up, and then we can just run through that quickly. Would you like for me to run through it, Katie? Just the like the certification? What does it say? Awesome.
Yeah, I just posted the link. It says Q3, but it's Q3 and Q4.
Okay, cool. Yes. So yes, if you guys can click on that, and then we can run through that together. I'll run through it once. This video will be posted, of course, so you can jump to this spot and see how the certification works. So we'll say my name is Nish, and so then my LT is Austin. Phone number, we'll just say 8170. And then my email is, and so what function am I currently in? I am on the finance function. And so then these questions, the reason that you need to be certified is to make sure that you understand how to navigate and properly use the spaces that are provided to you, so that you don't make mistakes that cause more time to be put into the actual reimbursement process, the transfer process, direct payment process. So it's just making sure that you have the competency to go through and add a request without causing more time to have to go into it on the other side of things. And so which platform can you use to find information on whether the company has paid for an invoice yet? We just went over that. So it is Intacct. So Intacct. So what is the minimum amount in order for the MC to submit a direct payment on behalf of your LC? And so a quick explanation, the direct payment is used for anything above $500 that your LC would not normally be able to pay for upfront. And so the answer to this is at least $500. And so that process, you would go to Podio, go to the direct payment process, and then add a request to explain why you need the MC to pay for something directly. So then within how many days of a purchase can an LC send a reimbursement? So this is generally a month, so 30 days. And then, so according to your financial model, what percentage of the revenue in exchange goes to your LC? So this ties back into Wave, where, for example, I was using OGT as a revenue. The cut that comes out from the MC, in my case, would be, so for expansions or member on alert, you would say that 70% is kept by the LC. Oh, my spelling today. And 30% goes to MC. And then if you're a general member, you would say 75% is kept by the LC and 25% is going to the MC. And then finally, if you're a full member, 70%, or I'm sorry, 80% is kept by the LC and 20% goes to the MC. And so then the next two, you are writing your name, basically saying that you take full responsibility of the activities made under your name within ISIC United States Incorporated. So so I fully understand that if I am doing something, it does impact me. And by writing my name here, I agree that I've read and will follow the standards and regulations set by the most currently updated ICQS compendium. And so really quickly, you can actually go to HappyFox. So icqs.happyfox.com. And so this is actually also a wonderful resource that I didn't initially think of. But it's basically a knowledge base that you can use for most things related to your LC, related to the sort of procedures that happen. But we do have a finance space as well. So it's got a bunch of finance spaces. But specifically in the example that I was giving you, you can go to the compendium. So you'd say ICQS compendium. And so this pulls up the compendium, and you can scroll down to the finance section, which is the 4 section, I believe. Yeah. And so you just scroll down. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a lot longer than I. Awesome. So yes, Article 4. So financial structures, you can read through all of this. It is, if you want to scroll down faster than I did, it is page 26 is the starting of the financial structures. But yes. Cool. And so then you say, yes, I have read through I would read through all of the compendium. The financial part is, you should know that, but just make sure that you're following the standards and regulations set forth by the compendium, and then you hit submit. I have submitted before, so I won't submit again, but hopefully that was a good run through of that. Cool. So then you would have your certification pull up. So Tish, and so then my name is Tish. I'm just going to run through an example of how a reimbursement would be submitted. So then my LC is Austin. So in the case of expansions, like Katie mentioned before, it might not have your name on here. And so you'd either put other or expansions. And so if you're not an expansion and your name isn't on here, then you put other and then specify on here in terms of what LC you are. So the check recipient name, we'll say that I am, you can't technically do this, but I would request a reimbursement and say somebody else is requesting a reimbursement for me. So I would say Yatish is the one receiving. So the reimbursement method is ACH transfer. You also have the option to get a physical check in the mail. And so I'll just use that example to show you what this looks like. So physical check in the mail, you would say, so my address is 2210 Wall Street, we'll say that, New York, Europe. And then you'd put basically the address that you want the check to be sent to. If you do a ACH transfer, you would go here, ACH transfer information. So we'll say, and so as a sign up, if you need a new, so if somebody's never filled out an ACH transfer information, you would go to this top right. It says instructions. If you wish to add a new ACH recipient form, please fill out this form. So we'll open that. And so this is what you would have somebody fill out in order to get their information to be able to transfer the money through ACH from the MC control account for your LC or wherever you're charging the amount from to their bank account. And so you would have somebody fill this out completely, and they'll just have some questions. Make sure, so this is a common thing that I see in Austin, is people will put their credit card number instead of their account number where it says the account number. They should never do that because that's a breach for them in terms of their security. Making sure that they go online, check out what their account number is, type that in. And so then here, you would say, so the name on the account would be Yatish Narur, and say the last 4 digits of my account were 0123. And so once they fill out that form, you won't receive it, but you should ask them for the ACH transfer information in terms of their first name, and last 4 digits on the account. And so then the memo is where it's very important that you put a very specific reason for the expense. And so it has some examples like one SNC delegate fee. So we'll use that as an example. The one SNC delegate fee for me. So each. And so then the total amount being requested, we'll say was $350. And so then the account number. So this is where the coding comes in. And so you have LC supplies, all these things. And so you'd scroll down, in my case, to conference delegate fees. And so it is a national conference, so conference delegate fees national. So you do that. And so then if it is more than one account, you would put in the multiple account number explanation what the other coding is and explain why it's both of them. Then for location, in this case, Austin is paying for my delegate fee to SNC, so Austin. And then if the location is ambiguous or there's a specific reason why you're charging it to a location maybe other than your LC, or even if you are charging it to your LC, explaining why it's being charged to that location is important. So we'll say Austin is my LC and they have sponsored me for SNC. And then it is important that you have a receipt for showing that this transaction actually occurred, because without a receipt, we can't reimburse you for something that you theoretically purchased or that you haven't shown proof of purchase. And so first, you should scroll down and add the file of a picture of the receipt, or you should have a picture of the receipt that you add as a file, and then you'd say, I have attached my receipt. And so for the account representative, it would be, so in my case, Olivia Baker is my LCP. And so we'll say Olivia, and we'd also tag myself. If somebody else was submitting this, we'd tag myself just so that I also can see this process happening as it goes through the steps. And then I would save the request, and so then it would be added. And so in this case, both the account representatives would get an email saying that they've been attached to something. You'd go through this process, make sure that everything looks fine. So on the reverse side, if somebody requests a reimbursement, you would go through, make sure all of these things are accurate. The receipt matches the amount being requested. It cannot exceed the amount being requested, things like that. And then you would add a comment. So you would go through and say approved by account representative. You would go through the process and say approved, make sure everything is valid. And
Just a
so,
quick note, you can tag your VP as, like if you're VP, you can be tagged in all of these, but the approval has to come from the LCP.
perfect. Yes. So, yes, Olivia would be the one approving this, and then I would just be tagged on there to see the process go through. And then if I say I was Olivia, I would make sure that this is all good. She's the account representative, so she would say approved by account representative, and then you would say approved, and then you would add that as a comment as well, just to like basically double check. So I will delete this before before it becomes a real thing. So yes, that is how you would basically request a reimbursement. So direct payment is almost the same way. I'll run through this a little faster so that we can talk about the budget tool in greater detail. So this one, I would add payment. So I'd say my name is Anish. So my LC is Austin. And then the payment location would be, so say Austin is the one paying for something. So of course, my LC is Austin. We want to buy something for say over $500. So the payment location would be Austin because we can't normally afford it at the local level or somebody can't pay for it. And so we would get it deducted from our MC controlled account. And so then the account number will say, so we'll use conferences again. So we'll say that we paid for 2 conference fees for $700. So conference delegate fees national, and then you'd say the payment deadline. So in this case, it's not the delegate fee would have been paid for. Say it needs to be paid for before the first round is over, before the fee increases, before registration closes. So in this case, we'll just say for WNC, today's the last day to register for round 2. If you haven't registered yet, please do that. And so it needs to be done by 11:59 p.m. So we'll just say that. And so then the payment type, this is basically the method that the vendor would like the payment to, the methods that they take. So if they don't take a check, maybe you need to get their ACH information and then you pay for it through that. Or if the MC needs to use a credit card to pay for it, and that's the only acceptable way, we use that as a method as well. So the payee, so this would be the business name. So in this case, this is actually a really bad example now that I think about it. But we'll say Wufu. We'll just say Wufu is the company that needs payment from us. And so the address, if it is a check, or the ACH transfer information. So in this case, I said credit card. So basically, you would coordinate with, once you've submitted this this payment request, you would coordinate with Katie or the finance assistant to see how the payment can happen. And so we'll say, so yeah, you would basically fill this information out. Just for the sake of time, I'll speed through that. Payment amount was, okay, so 1, 2, 3. Oh, died. Okay, good. So payment amount would be $700 for 2 delegate fees. So the memo is 2 conference delegate fees. So additional information is anything that you feel is necessary in order for the payment to be fully understood, to be actually approvable and things like that. So then the account representative, this will depend on what the payment is for, but you would, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, but you would tag Katie as well as your LCP in this case. Yes.
Yeah, so if it's a payment like from your LC, you would tag your LCP as the account rep. It's fine to tag me too. Like I should get a notification for it anyway, but the person to approve it would still be the LCP.
Yeah. Because the amount is coming out of your LC bank account, so whoever is in charge of the bank that is being deducted from should always be the account representative. Awesome. And so then the same process would go. You would save the payment. You would attach a file if there's an invoice that has like the amount, the due date, all that stuff. So then you attach that, save the payment, and basically that is how the direct payment process works in a nutshell. So leave that, save. And so then, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I was gonna say that is a good point though, Yatish. So if you guys are ever doing, it really wouldn't be a direct payment, but if you are ever doing a reimbursement, say for like flights for a steering team, which is covered by the MC, or flights for like an NST summit that's covered by the MC. If the reimbursement, whatever it is, like the location is being charged to national, like if it's a national expense, an MC expense, then you would always tag the account rep as me.
Awesome. Cool. So I will pause again. Any questions before we talk about the budget tool in detail? I promise I can attempt to answer questions. Okay, I'm gonna drink some water. Awesome. Okay, so in a nutshell, I beg to differ. I'm not exactly the nicest person in the world, but cool. So the main goal of going through all these tools and resources is so that you are prepared with the things that are most essential to making sure that you can start your term, or you've already begun formulating how your budgeting, how your sort of interactions with your EB will look like, as well as members when it comes to reimbursements, things like that. And so your budgeting, there's actually also a really cool PowerPoint. I will show my screen again. There's a really cool PowerPoint. If you look at, where did I put it? Oh, I'm sorry. It's
if
in
you
the,
guys haven't,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
You go.
No, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, if you haven't seen that tool before, every LC should have made a copy of that master tracker. But the content of all these transition calls are based off of the transition outline from that tracker. And so that's a process you should be going through on the local level as well with your predecessors.
Yes. Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, ask your LCP elect or your LCP current about it.
Yes. Yeah, so this is just the template that was sent out, but like Katie said, all of our sessions are looking at each of these and making sure we hit all the points that are necessary to give you guys the best footing possible. And so we're on the tools and resources today. And so the 2017 LC budget tool, that's weird to say, but this one is, I made a copy of this one, so we'd say ISIC in Austin. And of course, since this is a new tool, please do make sure that you stop me if I'm going too quickly. We're going through this process together because it is one of the first times I'm also using this tool. So ISIC in Austin. So this is basically describing, so a budget is a detailed plan for your LC that is usually expressed in formal quantitative terms, numbers, or cash. So once the budget is established, you have just begun. So your actual spending is tracked and should be monitored throughout basically the course of your terms, as well as before and after. And so budgets are used for two purposes. So there's planning and there's control. So you will develop a strategic and operational plan while preparing this budget to achieve your LC goals. The initial question of what is our focus will allow you to develop a tentative version before WNC. So that gives you a little less than a month. So once you finalize this plan and solidify your goals, your budget will solidify how you will execute your plan. So then control the process of gathering feedback to ensure that this plan is properly executed or modified as circumstances do change. This involves a process of setting financial and performance minimums with budgets, comparing the actual results, and adjusting based on performance and costs as it is needed. So important things to know about this tool, these are very important things actually, is the tool is meant to be as intuitive as possible, but it does have a lot of tabs, and the tabs can look scary if you look at them by themselves. But what you're really putting in is the budget, the detail of revenues, and the detail of expenses when you're first creating this budget. So the revenue detail tab allows you to easily plan for how much revenue you will bring in according to how much your LC will do exchange-wise. So simply inputting your projected exchange statistics. And so one thing that I will mention before we go further into detail is your budgeted revenue should not really come from your goals by the EB. So when you're planning on your goals, it should be the natural exchange numbers that will occur. So either you stay the same as where you're currently at in terms of historical data. So I would look as far back as 2 or 3 years ago. If your LC is a newer one, looking at the data that you do have to make an informed decision about what is realistically possible, not something that you hope will happen or a goal that you plan to have happen. So be as realistic as possible so that you don't over promise revenue or over budget for revenue and then undervalue your expenses or vice versa. And so don't plan on your goals, basically use your historical data. And so then the expense detail tab allows you to plot out your strategic and project spending. So you should put each individual project and conference expenditure in this tab. So the sort of the magic is in the details. The more detailed you are, the more accurate this budget will end up being. And you won't run into sort of obstacles of not planning for certain things or not having certain things in your budget already. And so what you should not touch are these first 3 tabs, or actually first 4 tabs. So the basics tab, of course, you can change it if you'd like, but it's basically an overview of what you should be expecting. You don't want to change the dashboard tab, the variance tab, the variance percentage tab, and the budgeted versus actuals tab, because these things will be updated automatically, and they are there are a lot of protected cells in the budget tool, so you shouldn't edit anything that is colored unless it's empty. And one of the easiest ways when you're looking through Excel sheets is if it has a formula attached to that specific cell, chances are you probably shouldn't touch it. That's the easiest way to go about that. And so like I said before, if you want a sort of a better overview of how to budget, this is so just click here to learn more about budgeting, so you can open that. So this is actually a PowerPoint as well on the budgeting process and how to best budget, how to create an effective budget. And this has some tools and tips that will really help you visualize how you should map out your budget, especially when you're making it with your team and setting forth everything. And so we will start with an example of budget. So as you can see, all of these are shaded tabs. So you should not touch these as they do have formulas. So we will say, so fundraising, these are all revenues. So basically we'll say that corporations, say one of your companies offers you $500. So you'd put that in the budget, and then if you look through everything, you basically just will fill this out as you do see fit, and as the things that you are getting revenue from do occur. And so this is the budgeting side. And so what that means is these aren't your actuals quite yet, especially since you're planning ahead. And so if you look, it already has updated. So for the month of January, your budget is that you will make $500. And then the current year, your budget is that you will make $500 from fundraising. And your actuals tab has not been updated, of course. And so this is where you will.
Yeah, so sorry, actually this, I realize is not, the coloring of the actuals tab is not the best because that's actually the actuals of last year. So it actually shouldn't be colored darker. I'll actually adjust that after this because those are just numbers you can put in, like the final numbers of this year, so that you can compare what you're looking at, the total annual budget for 2017 versus what actually happened in 2016. So those are numbers in that actuals tab because it says last year that you'll actually just fill in. So I apologize for that. I'll change it after.
Yeah, and one of the things is, as I'm going through this budget as well, if you see anything that you see would like be confusing, or if there's anything that you want to change or like have suggestions for, we are in, like, of course, the phase where we're looking at releasing the budget and making it available to everybody, but also we really want your feedback so that we can make the budget tool as accurate, as easy, and as efficient as possible. And so that's what the purpose is. We'll try to send that budget out hopefully today. I think we will be sending it out today. So yes.
It's coming out today, and there will be a form, which UTeach will talk a little bit about at the end, to be able to collect that input.
Yes. So, yes. So as I'll be pretty quick about this so that I don't keep you guys, but you essentially will put through the year what your plan is. So maybe there's a company that's getting you $500 every single month. Make that a, so we'll just do that all the way to April. And then, so the NSF, which is the National Support Fund, is a really cool way for you to get money to do things that you want to do for your LC to grow. And I suggest looking into that if you guys need funds to make something happen that you wouldn't normally be able to invest in or don't have the capital for. And so we'll say that I requested money for that. So let's say $100. And then this is where your program fees come in. And so you would not touch these if you notice. They, as it says, revenue detail F9. Oh no, what you do? You would change these, yes?
It's connected. You can see in D11, there's a note that's connected to the revenue detail. So that's the darker shade. And since it's a darker shade, you wouldn't touch it. When you update the revenue detail tab, it'll automatically update on this budget tab.
Yes. Yeah. So then you'd go to this tab and you'd be changing all these things. And so, yes. So then if you have charge membership dues, whatever that may be, and so then you go down to expenses. So what's really awesome about this budget is it has everything, like with all the coding, makes it really easy for you to type in exactly where you see the breakdown looking like it'll be. And that way you don't have to go through, make your own budget tool that does not have the coding, isn't as in depth. And so this has everything that you could possibly think of expense-wise that is possibly coded. And so if you look here, it basically updates for you what your surplus or loss is for each month. And so we had $500 from the corporation, and then we got $100 from the NSF. We have no expenses. So in reality, you'd be updating this to reflect your LC. And so then your actuals tab is once you basically put in everything for your budget. You say, we actually say this company only wanted to give you $250. So you ended up getting $250 for these 3 months. $250 here. And then say the NSF, you ended up, they awarded you $50 out of the $100 that you requested because that's what they wanted. And then you would go down here. And so then it would show you your actual surplus and loss for the actuals tab. And so then when you, and so then when you go to the revenue detail, you have the rate of deduction. So basically 75% is how much you would keep if you were a general member. So we can change this to 80% and it would update. So see, it does take a few seconds because it is a lot of formulas. But if you are keeping 80% of your ICX revenue, then the LC keeps 400 if the minimum amount is 500. So then what's awesome is it's also commented, so you can see IGV. So here's the package dealing, basically of how much money you would be charging for how many Ps. And so then you can look through all of that, and then it explains everything in great detail. And so then you can look through all of these, and they are updated based on the rate of deduction. So then this does accounts for everything that the MC would take out, so that this reflects accurately what your revenues will look like. So that is awesome. And then the same thing for your expense detail. You would be basically putting in, so for strategic fund, you'd say, okay, for ICX, we spent money on this, here was the project, and here's how much it's gonna cost each month. Or if it's a single project, then you would have multiple tabs and you can always add extra, you can add insert one below, and you have more rows to work with for ICX, for OGX, for TM, communication, OD, other. And so then you've got R&R, and so this is to reward your members, all that stuff. And so then it has the monthly total, and then you've got your conference travel. So this breaks down to international, national, regional, functional, other travel. And so all of this is in awesome detail that will basically allow you to put everything in as it pertains to whatever you're spending money on. And yes, and so then everything will be essentially, if you look here, so the dashboard shows that your budgeted was that you're going to make $500 in the month of February, and you ended up making half of that. And so this is a great way to like graphically show how everything looks. And so, yes, I hope that explained in brief detail, but in decent detail, how the budget tool works. I think honestly, the best way for me personally to learn these kinds of budget tools is to go through them myself, try to find out like what's missing that I would like to add, see what works, what is like really efficient. And so we'll be sending out that tool tonight, and hopefully you guys will be able to use it. So yes, thank you for allowing me to speak or yell at you depending on your volume. And yes, thank you. I will answer any questions to the best of my knowledge.
Any questions about the budget tool, any of the resources?
I promise I don't bite. Thank you, Laura.
I had a quick question about when the budget tool is going to be released, actually.
Yeah, it's being released today. And what Yatish and I were talking about earlier actually is we want to make sure that everyone also has a chance to give their input and say like, oh, I like this about the tool, this is missing, and give us some time to make a little bit of adjustments. So we're releasing it today for input. And so people will have until Sunday to look at it and see and give those comments of this is what I don't understand, this is what I like that is there, this is what's missing. Then we can make any adjustments necessary. And then by Wednesday next week, we're going to release a folder with every single LC that has like all of the tools there. So you can just go in and like work on yours.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. I will stop this broadcast now.